All right. So, being is everywhere. You guys can still hear me? Yeah, so this topic of, if you can't, let me know soon because I'm starting to blabber here. So, um, this topic of unity, of undividedness, of oneness comes up a lot in non-duality. Closer way of talking about oneness is not to say one, but more to say not two, right? Which is literally what non-duality means. So that topic comes up a lot. Unity. I'm, these people are saying I'm one with everything. How's that possible? I don't, I'm here. I'm this. How can I be everything else? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, to the mind, I don't know how it tries to. I guess it thinks of oneness in terms of like, you see the Matrix movie and Mr. Smith, the villain or whatever, just multiplies and multiplies, and there's just tons of Mr. Smiths everywhere. Maybe that's a common idea, I guess, that comes up with oneness. But no, when we talk about oneness, what's really being and what's really being talked about is that your being, the being you are, your presence, uh, doesn't stop just at the body. The beingness you are doesn't just stop there, right? What we call the present moment, where you are right now as you're sitting here, and you become quiet, and the mind kind of settles down. You can you can kind of sense your beingness, right? Your presence, the fact that you're here in this room, wherever you are. Okay, so you know what I mean when I say beingness. Being. It's just a recognition of aliveness, being alive, beingness. So throw out all ideas of oneness and unity and just stick with this beingness that you are. Deeply recognize it here now as we're sitting. Okay, quick recognition. Now, if you were to not continue thinking, what if you just stopped thinking? You never thought about anything ever again. You just stayed in this space of beingness. Eventually, the veils would lift and it would start to become apparent that by not supposedly dividing your consciousness through thought, through thinking, that your beingness doesn't actually have boundaries, that it's literally what we call the present moment. That is what beingness is. It is the being. It's existence itself. Everything that's included in existence, here now, is the being. Why? Because there's no mind that's saying otherwise, right? It actually takes a mind to separate life, to supposedly separate life. And so when it's quiet, well, then that tool isn't being used to do that. So then life as it is, as it already is, unified and whole, undivided, becomes more apparent. That's why Mr. Eckhart there is always heavily emphasizing to stop bloody thinking. Why? It's not because your thoughts are painful necessarily, but that's a big motivator, right? It's because doing so starts to awaken you to something much bigger going on here. So, hypothetically speaking, you stay here long enough, right? Let's say you get hit over the head with a 2x4. You just stop thinking. You stay here long enough, and the distinctions aren't there. Can't be there because there's no mind dividing existence, saying I'm this and that's that. That's when, you know, some folks call it the third eye or spirit, the eye of spirit opening up. But that's when you start to look around you here. And you're looking around without saying it's me looking around, right? It's just this aware, alert isness observing what it is everywhere. So there's no disconnection between everything else, even though these appear as the 10,000 things, right? Because there's no mental division happening, mental dividing happening, then suddenly there's a beingness that starts to arise, starts to emanate from everything. It's not like Mr. Smith in the Matrix, the cup doesn't turn into Kyle, right? And start talking to Kyle, right? This is a different kind of consciousness, different kind of identity, you could say, I guess, than that of the mind identity. It's what spiritual folks call the self with a capital S. The self is existence itself. Everything in it is all made of the same stuff, the same beingness. So hence the topic title today, being is everywhere. Yeah. When you stop mentally believing the story that you're a mental something that moves from point A to B and beingness is enough, then really it's the end of your travels. You don't really go anywhere anymore because the recognition of what you are has nothing to do with anything that could be thought of. It's a recognition of that what you are is simply ourness. Is that a proper spiritual term? So, wherever you go, there you are. Couldn't be otherwise. And wow, what an implication that is. The implications of that are huge. If you stay as beingness long enough, yeah, you recognize you're the tree, you're the sidewalk, you're the house that's being walked by, you're the car driving by, you're the dog barking out the window. You know, And then you could say an even more of a gift is you look at another person. And without that label there, that that fundamental me and you happening, then there's this very mysterious, beautiful, magnificent uh, familiarity, recognition there, that not only are these people not strangers, it's even deeper than that. It's actually all a part of you. It's all an extension of you in some strange, fascinating, complex, unimaginably intelligent way. And I'll just touch back on the idea of being. Just look down at yourself, just for a sec. There's an automatic recognition. When you come into the world, consciousness is still consciousness. Uh, and when it really starts to identify as being something in particular, obviously it happens with the body first. It narrows its field of being, you could say, down to this kind of. It never really loses being, right? It's just its sense of beingness gets contracted very much down into this form we call the body. So it's not lost, you could say, when even with the ego developing and that going to sleepness happening, beingness isn't actually lost. It's just incredibly contracted. Its sense of itself is incredibly contracted. It itself isn't. It's always just everything. But the identification makes its sense of itself seem very, very contracted, very specific, the body, right? So it's not lost though. So you can just, what I'm talking about. You can just look down and look at the body, and there's an immediate, absolute certainty that's me, right? There's a certainty. You look down and there's the body, there's a beingness there. It's just a fact. You can't really be argued with, right? And it can never really be taken away. You know, you're certain at least of that you're the body, right? The suffering comes in obviously when it's believed that you're just that you're nothing else. You're just the body. And that's upheld by the mental dividing that happens through the mind, the labeling of everything in life. The adding of stories to everything. So, you have kind of an anchor already. The body is an anchor into being, right? It's always in beingness. Even if your mind goes on all kinds of trips into the past and the future, the body doesn't. It's sitting right here the whole time. So it's an anchor in truth. Start with that, Recognize that the body doesn't actually ever go anywhere. Even if the mind says, well, yeah, I do. I mean, I'm in my head. I'm thinking about this thing that happened the other day. The body's not. Body's like, what are you talking about? Stick with the truth of the body. And then watch how the beingness that you recognize in the body starts to expand, starts to open up. and starts to leave, you could say, the body. The more you recognize what's always here, what never leaves, the more that what's here becomes more than just the body. It expands, it bleeds into everything, becomes everything. Inconceivable to the mind. Doesn't get it. Just doesn't get it. It tries. The truth of you, your beingness, knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's not confusing at all. And Andreas says the opposite of that experience is something like walking in nature. The opposite of what experience? If I had seen your comment when you first wrote it, I might have known what you were saying the opposite of. The contraction. Yeah. You mean that walking in nature is has a closer felt sense to expansive beingness? Beingness? Is that what you mean? And try to right try to also see that you're always walking in nature. Yeah, I know when we talk about nature, we're talking about walking in the forest and trees and watching the squirrels and nature stuff. But you're always, even all the things made of from man, it was made from nature. So it is still made of nature stuff, no matter how bizarre and weird, all of this stuff is. It's still made of nature stuff. You're always walking in nature, you know, even if it's some very impersonal feeling room you're in, you know, no pictures on the walls, no windows. It still emanates beingness. And it can't not ever emanate beingness. Even if it, started out as a tree and got turned into a, you know, piece of plywood painted with chemicals derived from minerals and crap from the earth. Yeah, it's all stardust. That's right. Yeah, so that's why being awake really does liberate you to be free from the insanity of the current picture on the planet. This current snapshot of what human beings have kind of created around here. It liberates you to still enjoy. You can walk through an industrial slum and still be very full of joy and wonder because you're not looking at something to make you feel a certain way. You're walking through there with just the awareness of something walking through there as being enough, right? The beingness that you are is enough in that moment when you're walking through there. Therefore, there's no division saying, oh, industrial slum and wonderfully awake person, you know. So then There's just a simple, oh, I guess I'm in an industrial slum right now. That's what I am. That's how life wants to have it happen right now, I guess. Must be the case, because there you are, as consciousness recognizing itself as an industrial slum, walking through there. Of course, that label's not there, which also uh, softens the experience. Julie had mentioned a dream of after a talk, one of my talks. You said on Facebook there, had this very cool dream in which a friend of mine and I were talking, and he asked me, "Is Kyle present here now?" And I said, "Yes, of course he is here, just without a form." Then we looked through the window, and there were clouds in the shape of arrows, and they were affirming what I said. Yeah, some nice metaphors there. So obviously the arrows represent beingness and directness. Beingness is always very direct. It's your direct experience of life. And whatever it is in you that resonates with me, with Kyle, is a recognition of beingness, right? You don't, you're not saying, "Oh, there's Kyle. Yeah, well, I've seen that guy before." It's more than that, right? It's deeper. It's a felt sense that whatever the hell is coming from this guy is one and the same as what's right here, right? When you're drawn to truth, when you're drawn to teachers of truth, you're not drawn to the teacher, you're drawn to the truth. It just happens to be coming out of so and so, right? Uh, Jesus, and this is not a religious talk, but I do recall from my altar boy days some kind of statement like, "Lift up a rock and you'll find me there," you know, uh, and something else along those lines. What is he talking about? When he said that to someone who had no concept of what beingness was, they're probably like, "Yeah, this guy's loco. Yeah, he's out to lunch. What are you talking about? Have you somehow divided yourself and shrunk yourself and put yourself under a rock?" No. So when you recognize truth, it has nothing to do with the form that it takes. It's just that truth is all form. All form is made of a beingness. So you can lift up a rock and look under there. You can dive into the ocean, pick your nose, look at it. It's all there. It's everywhere. It's everything. Julie says, similar to what Ramana said when he was dying and his devotees said, Master, don't leave us. And he said, where would I go? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he may have also in the back of his head been like, geez, these guys haven't gotten anything. They haven't heard a word I've said. Or what the hell, you know. It's not about me. God damn it. Truth is not about a form. Of course, naturally, we'll mistake form for the truth when truth really seems to be pouring out of it in copious amounts. Once you realize this, there's no need to go on a vacation with all inclusive. uh, yeah, isn't that interesting how we embed certain messages for ourselves? The best vacation is an all inclusive vacation. Right. That's really the only way a vacation can really truly be a vacation. So if it's all inclusive. Really. Being, there can't be anything outside of being, outside of your being, if being is really all it's cracked up to be. Can I talk about the space between body and objects? No. I can try. I won't succeed. But if there was ever a close enough uh, uh, external phenomenon that could be called the void, that would be the space between objects. The void is your deepest truth, the deepest truth of what you are. You are exactly like the space between objects. So much like it that you actually are it. That's why when you stop thinking and objects, the objects of mind stop happening, you don't go anywhere. And yet you're nobody in that moment. You're nothing. You're a void. So if you ever wanted a external representation, quote unquote external representation of what you are at the deepest level, you are that. You are that no thingness gap between objects. That's what you are. My apologies for the inadequate answer. I guess if it was adequate, then it'd be the wrong answer. The more you start to recognize that what you are is something that can't actually go anywhere, the more you'll start to understand intuitively and experientially just what exactly that gap is between objects. You'll have a deeper understanding. Mentally trying to figure out or get a concept that sticks about what that is not a wise use of time, because the understanding comes through remaining as beingness. And you can't remain as beingness if beingness is dividing itself through thinking about whatever. I'm at the 2 minute mark here, so if anybody else wanted to say hello in the chat, please do so. And thank you for everybody that has commented so far. Thank you. Thank you for coming and for the inspiration. So, up on the docket for tomorrow is feelings are true, thoughts are not. So we're talking about the direct experience of life, discerning what's true and what's not. And that one will be at 6:30 p.m. PDT. So it'll be a late one. Thanks for joining me again, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, Andreas popped one in there. Your approach is almost the opposite of the stern Zen master with his fierce stick. Yeah, perhaps. You know, I do have a stick. But you tend to only feel that stick when you're ready to. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming. Softness overcomes hardness, right? Softness overcomes hardness. Maybe it's time you put your stick away. All right. I'll see you guys in a short while. Thanks for coming. Have a good day.